Hey guys, Woods Farm here, Project 222. We are finally back out in the shop working on the Scout Car project again, so stick around and check it out. Okay, so it's that time of year again. We are back out in the shop working on the SdKfz 222 Armoured Scout Car project. This is going to be the final year. We're almost there. We're getting very close to being completed. So I've got the winter to work on it, and the plan is we're going to get to paint and finishing it up in the spring. That way we can use it in summer 2024. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of where we are at with the project and our plans for this winter. So as you can see, we are very close to being completed. We've got some mechanical stuff, some detail work, but the majority of the major fabrication is complete. The problem now is just figuring out where to go. There is still a lot to do. So sometimes when you get to this point in a project, it can be difficult to know where to work and what to work on next. So the idea is we really want to have a good plan of how to go forward, and that way we keep our momentum and things get done. One of the issues that came up this summer is we were test driving and we had an overheating problem. I suspected the engine was running hot on some previous test drives, but we actually boiled over the rad, and it's a sure thing that it overheated, obviously. So we're gonna have to take a look at that. It could be as simple as the thermostat could be stuck. That's very possible. However, I kind of suspect the weird setup with the radiator and the coolant system. You know, normally on an engine, the radiator would be right at right at the front. You'd have a fan, and the routing of the hoses is actually fairly short. So I'm wondering if that could be an issue. These hoses are very long, and I'm wondering if that's causing a problem. The other issue is up in there. You can see the rad and the electric fan. That radiator is used. We do not know what the condition was. Bought it from a hot rod guy. He said it was running on a V8 and it was fine, but it could be maybe too small of a rad for this size of an engine, or maybe it's all gummed up and it's just not running properly. I don't know. I kind of want to leave the radiator to the last possible option, so we're going to try some other things first. So to deal with the overheating, and again, it could have been something as simple as the thermostat being stuck, so we are going to check that. But the plan is to replace the water pump with a higher quality, high flow, high efficiency water pump, something that's actually designed to run very well at low RPMs. And apparently it's supposed to improve performance cooling by up to 30%. And I'm thinking with the long routing of the hoses, a better pump is going to help make a difference in the cooling system. The other thing we're going to attempt to do, and this is something that came up and you just don't really think about it, but the exhaust system, which I was never really happy with. This is was an interim measure, but what we noticed is that the engine deck was extremely hot. The steel was actually like hot to touch. A lot of heat was rising up. You can see those two mufflers are right under, and I think the heat was rising up, getting trapped in there, and obviously that's not a good situation for cooling. So the second part of the plan to address this overheating is to refabricate the exhaust system and try to get the mufflers outside from underneath the engine, put them in the proper position. On the original, they were kind of outside here, mounted on the rear fender, and hopefully that helps with the cooling as well. The next mechanical problem we want to address is the steering. Obviously the steering works. I've got that ATV gearbox in there to get the 90-degree orientation, but I, at the time, thought that was a 1-to-1 gearbox, but it must not be, because this steering is crazy. It's like a yacht, It takes a lot of turns of the wheel to get the tires to start moving. Obviously, it is drivable, but when you're trying to maneuver, do 3-point turns, sharp turns, this thing is hard to drive and it takes a lot of practice. So a little bit of research, and I've come to find there's a thing called a steering quickener, and I've got one of those on order. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, and we're going to have to do some fab work up in here to install it. It's basically like another gearbox, so somewhere kind of down in there, I guess, we'll have to get that installed, and it should improve the responsiveness of the steering significantly and make this thing a lot easier to drive. So I think the mechanical stuff with the turret I'm probably going to do fairly soon, but the mechanical stuff with the cooling system and the radiator and the muffler and all that stuff, I'll probably do a lot later in the year. I'm not sure when I'll do the steering, but we'll get to that, and obviously there'll be a video about it when we get there, and hopefully it improves the steering. But the main thing is to start working on the fabricating work on the exterior and interior, a lot of this detail stuff. I'm going to come up with kind of a plan of attack, but I think honestly the easiest thing to do is kind of approach it from like a front to back sort of situation. Just start at the front and just work my way towards the rear to get all these little detail things completed. So starting at the front, I want to get a skid plate on there. And also there's the 2 tow hooks. I've got those sourced. That needs to get sorted out. And then there's the bumper bar, which I have to order a piece of material for that. But we've got the bumper bar. Then there's going to be some detail work. There's sort of some components over top of the vision ports, things like that. You know, even the mounting points for, you know, the mirrors and lights, all that kind of stuff can get worked on. I do think I'm going to do the doors themselves last, but there's a whole bunch of trim work that needs to be done on the inside of the door panels in that area. Obviously the toolbox, that needs to get fabricated. That's going to be a big thing. I've got some ideas how I'm going to do it, but a little bit complicated with the, you know, you got the doors and all the latches and everything. That's got to get done. Talked about the exhaust system, changing that up, but then there's also tow hooks at the back that need to get set up. You got the spare tire mount that needs to get done. A little concerned about that because this panel here is one of the thinner panels. So I may have to reinforce it from the inside just to help get that mount so it's strong enough to actually bear the weight of that spare tire. So a lot of work to be done on the inside. We've got to get that driver's seat finished and mounted. There is the mesh cover that needs to get mounted around to cover the radiator. There's the piece right there. Got pieces. These are hatches for the battery compartment. You can see the opening back in the corner there. It's for the battery. And there's another access hatch up at the front. And we need to figure out where all the mounting points are for all of the equipment that gets mounted on the inside. So even if we don't finish the actual, you know, the mount for the spare barrel or the MP40, I need to know where everything is and have attachment points sort of welded on the inside. And then later down the road, we can finish that stuff. But the idea is these mounting points need to be at least there. That way, you know, when everything gets painted, you can't come back later and weld something on the inside of the panel because it'll melt the paint off the outside of the vehicle. It causes all kinds of extra work. So kind of need to get everything inside finished before we go to the painting process. Also have to work on the mount for the MG34 and the 20 millimeter. But that is going to be a low priority because that's stuff that can happen later. It's not going to affect us being able to use this vehicle potentially. Obviously, we do want to have the armaments, but again, it can be worked on later. I sort of made the mistake last year of spending some time kind of working on a prototype for the gas machine gun simulator. I have a lot of parts and a lot of stuff ready for that, but again, I'm going to wait. And the main idea is to get this vehicle ready in the spring to be painted, get it working and operational, and then we can add the armaments later. Okay guys, that's a really brief overview of what we're going to be working on this winter to get the vehicle completed. Obviously it's not everything that we have to work on, but it's a good idea. You can see where we're going with the project. So I'm definitely going to be working in the next couple of days, and I probably should have a progress video in another couple of weeks showing what the work that we've done. I'm pretty sure, like I said, I'm going to start with kind of a front to back approach. It will depend on what materials I have available and you know, what I have to order, but essentially I'm going to kind of start at the front if I can and kind of work my way back. And eventually, I think probably by the spring, we're going to be pretty close to having this thing ready for paint. And then we're going to finish up some of that mechanical stuff, get the electrical sorted out. And with a little bit of luck, this summer we will be on the road, operational. We'll be able to take this to reenactments and start using it the way we want to use it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And as always, thanks for watching.